Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Protecting Agents, Security Agreement, Insights, and Update. Hi, I'm Judy Howard, the Manager of Customer Experience and Training here at ARC, and I'll be your host. Presenting today's session, also joining me from ARC, will be Jeannine Hankinson, our Managing Director of Operations and Customer Experience, along with Cornelius Hattingh, Director of Revenue Integrity and Compliance and Accreditation. Joining us as well as Rich Licato, Vice President, Enterprise Risk, and he is our Chief Information and Security Officer. Before I turn it over to Jeannine to kick us off, though, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. This is an interactive session, and it is your time to ask the experts any questions. So please type in your questions, go to your control panel and type on the right-hand side of your screen and type those questions in. We'll ask the questions intermittently throughout the presentation. And the other thing is this will be recorded. So you can go back and watch it, and we will be sending this link out, and it will also be posted on our website under on-demand webinars, and you can share it with anyone in your office that wasn't able to attend. So first of all, I want to say thank you all for joining us here today. This is a really important and informative topic. So Jeannine, I'm going to hand it over to you now to get us started.
Thank you, Judy. Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to personally take a few seconds to thank you all for joining us today. Our goal is to educate you, and for those who are watching, and also for those who will be watching the webinar once we post it, and how to stay safe and protect yourselves against fraud. Today, we're going to go into great detail on what we have changed in our Industry Agents Handbook, which will become effective on January 30th. And we really want to ensure that you understand these enhanced requirements. I want to note, though, that ARC is just not pushing these requirements for no reason. We really want to minimize the agency losses that we've been seeing increase over the last year. It's our overall goal to maintain a healthy and strong agency distribution channel. We really are doing this to benefit the industry and want to make sure we retain as many healthy agents in the industry as we possibly can and eliminate as much fraud as we possibly can, especially given what we've seen over the last year. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleagues, Cornelius and Rich, that are going to get us started on the details, and then we'll be happy to answer questions as we go as well. So over to you guys.
Yep, thank you, Jeannine. And yeah, so just building on what Jeannine said, of course, over the last couple of years, we've been very active in communicating the risks associated with phishing and cybercrime and trying to create as much awareness of the issue as possible. So just as a bit of a recap on what we've been seeing, and especially around unauthorized ticketing, which has prompted us in strengthening our requirements and guidelines as it relates to cybersecurity. As you might recall, we've had quite a number of webinars around phishing and phishing instances, and the data here is just to reconfirm those instances. Of course, the issue has started back in 2009 with authorities arresting some of the bad actors in 2014. But then again, back in 2018, we started seeing a rise in this issue as the original fraudsters were released and got back into the system. The focus has mainly been a single GDS, and so those areas of compromise has been pretty isolated to the North American market. As we also noted in the past, is that phishing scams continue to be a huge concern for the industry and across all sectors. As noted here, 22% of phishing, of data breaches comes from a phishing attack or phishing scams. This is something that is very high on the FBI's list of issues to address as well, and as stated in their 2021 IC3 reporting, it continues and maintains to be a concern across all sectors. Some of the ways to prevent and protect yourself is through training, and so one of the statistics here is saying 84% of US-based organizations have shown a considerable increase in safeguarding their environments through training and creating awareness to their team members around phishing and what to look out for. related to phishing. And that is, another reason why we're doing what we're doing here today, is to just further the awareness around phishing, cybersecurity, and cybercrime, as it continues to be a problem within our industry and across all other business sectors. So moving on to what we need our travel agency community to be ready for as we move into 2024, and some of the changes that we've made to the ARA and the IAH for awareness and for better safeguarding as well for your systems. So we'll go into that a little bit in detail and do a breakdown as well as to what each one of those points mean. So moving on into what will go live in our agreements as of January 30th. So the major section that is changing is our section B, security guidelines for ARC traffic documents. So ARC traffic documents in an electronic format is where an agent must exercise reasonable care in the issuance or disclosure of ARC traffic documents and or transactional data. Reasonable care means implementing appropriate physical, electronic, and managerial procedures, training, and systems to prevent unauthorized access, disclosure, alteration, or destruction of ARC traffic documents and or transactional data. Reasonable care includes, but is not limited to, the following measures: effective and unique electronic challenges and authentication for all login credentials or security credentials, including but not limited to any credentials used to access system providers. This includes, for example, usernames, PIN, pseudo-city codes, and passwords of any user accessing agent hardware, systems, or any other systems or hardware which can be used to issue ARC traffic documents and transactional data. If permitted by a system provider, passwords that conform with the following criteria, which are 14 characters or more in length, combination of uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols, very much similar to what you would use to access your bank account details. A password that is different from all previous passwords must also be used. The use of multifactor authentication when made available by a system provider. Installation and recording of logs of all security patches and system updates made available by agents, computer operating system provider, and browser. Installation and maintenance of industry standard antivirus software, firewall software, and anti-malware software on all agents' computers, and the regular use thereof, and maintenance of logs for such use. Use and maintenance of effective and current anti-spam and anti-phishing email filtering systems, and effective use of anti-phishing toolbars. Appropriate maintenance of security, encryption, and password protection on agents' computer and any wireless internet systems used by agents' computers. The attendance of agent and all personnel issuing ARC traffic documents at ARC-approved fraud and security webinars and training in the previous 12 months. Installation of computer operating system updated with all the latest patches and with automatic updates enabled, and internet browsers installed with the latest patches and with automatic updates enabled. This is quite a list, and we're going to break that down for you as this webinar continues. So we'll jump into what we call the breakdown session. So looking at the first requirement, it states that effective and unique electronic challenges and authentication for all login credentials or security credentials, including but not limited to any credentials used to access system providers. This includes, for example, usernames, PIN, pseudo-city, and password of any user accessing agent hardware systems, or any other systems or hardware which can be used to issue ARC traffic documents and transactional data. What does this all break down to? So using a unique username and password, you should think of this as you would for any online account or any online access to high value data, banking details, etc. And you should bring that knowledge and criteria along to environments such as your GDS accesses. So as we've identified in the list, strong passwords are required, as well as additional security measures as described by the GDSs themselves. So as you would know, normally to get into a GDS, you are required to provide these three requirements: your username, your password, and your pseudo-city. And this information needs to remain unique, and it needs to be unique to you as well. This information should not be shared with other team members or other business partners in any way or form. Rich, over to you.
All right, thank you, Cornelius. The second requirement that we have here is, if permitted by a system provider, passwords that conform with the following criteria. So 14 characters or more in length, combination of uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols, and a password that is different from all previous passwords. So I don't think that this is a different requirement than what you normally see either on your normal computer networks or any other applications that you might use either through a mobile device like your bank or anything else. I think the only thing that is probably new is the length. So 14 characters or more in length. Why do we ask for that? As Cornelius mentioned, this is referred to as a complex password. The reason why we ask for 14 characters or more is because, one, it's hard to guess something when you use 14 characters. And then two, it's also very difficult for automated programs to crack a 14-character password. And that means to guess it on their own. So sophisticated methods of trying to steal people's passwords are thwarted when you use 14 or more characters. The way to think about a 14-character password is what we refer to as a passphrase. So if you think of a sentence or some type of other mnemonic device in terms of remembering things, either children's names or something like that, but replacing characters. That's why we ask for uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. So again, if you use techniques like replacing I's with ones or replacing E's with threes or something like that, but making it complex to use a combination of these characters and thinking of it as a longer sentence or passphrase, that will help you with the complexity of these passwords. And we want to make sure that you use a different password than what you've used previously or elsewhere, right? This is the same thing that people mention to you in personal accounts. So to not use the same password everywhere, to have a different password for different applications.
Perfect. Rich, I've got a couple of questions coming in. I think I'm going to read them out here and see if we can answer them. If not, we can also take these offline. The first question I have here is ARC working with Galileo, Travelport, etc. to upgrade their GDS logins from a maximum 10 uppercase letters or numbers only and no special characters allowed? And the second question relates to it's somewhat similar in question, so I think we can tackle them both at this time. Rich, are you able to answer those before I jump in?
Yeah, I would say that we're talking with all of the GDSs about their current requirements and sharing with them what these new requirements are so that we can all be in sync. And as you know, sometimes system changes take a while to go through. And so we'll continue to have conversations with the GDSs so that we can all have the same set of requirements together. Anything you want to add to that, Cornelius?
No, I think you hit that one on the head. Thank you, Rich. I have nothing else to add, but just want to ask the audience to continue placing their questions in the toolbar, as we will continue taking those as we touch on each one of these topics. So please feel free to continue putting your questions in there. Moving on to number 3.
All right, the next requirement says the use of multi-factor authentication when made available by a system provider, including single sign-on solutions. So let me break that down. First, we'll talk about multi-factor authentication. So multi-factor authentication means that the system provider is requiring the user to present a combination of 2 or more authentication factors. So usually that's a password plus something else. If you're used to using a mobile app for your banking, or even online, or for your retirement account or something like that, normally you've encountered something that uses multi-factor. Sometimes you'll get an email with a passcode to be entered in after you log in, or you'll get a text message or something like that. That's what we're talking about here, is that you need your password and something else. So it's whatever that code is or whatever the GDS supplies as a second factor of authentication. And so we would like everybody, if it's available, to sign up for it. That's what we're talking about for multi-factor authentication. For single sign-on, that's for larger organizations that might have a direct connection, or what's called a federation between the company and the GDS. And all that's doing is saying that when I log on to my local network in the office, that I can then log into the GDS automatically, and there will be arrangements to have communication set and the password and user ID sent over between the local network and the GDS. And single sign-on is allowed if in your local network that you have multi-factor set there too. So that will be considered as meeting this requirement if on your local login you use your password and a second factor, and then you can then sign on to the GDS without having to do multi-factor again. That's the whole purpose of single sign-on.
Thanks, Rich. Just another question that came in that relates to the passwords. Is it safe? The question is it safe to save passwords in computers for easy access if we have all the security systems in the company in place?
It is normally safe to store passwords in a password application that's made specifically for that purpose, because what happens there is the password applications scramble your password when you save it so that you can retrieve it. Normally you need some method to do it. But storing it just in a file probably does not make sense. Certainly do not write it down on a sticky and put it there. Sometimes people might create their own application by using a spreadsheet and password protecting it. As long as it's local and not available, I would say that's an okay method, but not the best method. The best method is to use a password application that's made specifically to store passwords so that you can retrieve them and use them yourself. That's how I would answer that question.
Perfect, thank you. Then we have another question here around multi-factor. It's more of a statement. Sabre offers a multi-factor option, but there is a charge. In our discussions with the GDSs, have we gained any additional insights into that? Rich, my understanding is that that charge is not necessarily going to be applied moving forward. Do you have a similar understanding or a different intake?
I believe we've been told the same thing, Cornelius, so I think that's a true statement.
Perfect. All right, moving on to our requirement number 4.
The next requirement states that installation and recording of logs of all security patches and system updates made available by agent's computer operating system provider and browser. So what does this mean? We want to make sure that anything that is done to the computer has logging turned on, so that in case of an incident, we can trace what happens. Now, the good news is normally, most operating systems turn this on by default. So if you're using Windows, for instance, all of their logging is set up for the browsers as well as the operating system. So anything that is updated for the browser or for the operating system is automatically logged. What we're really trying to say here is to ensure that logging is turned on and make sure that you do not turn it off. That's what we want to make sure is in place. So that in case an incident occurs, we at least have a set of logs that we can go to and that you can provide to us so that we can do some analysis.
Another question here, Rich, still on passwords and access. Is biometric authentication, fingerprint, Face ID, also in consideration to eliminate chance of password leakage or phishing attack? I suppose it depends on the device that you're using. If you're accessing your GDS via your mobile phone, Rich, would that suffice? If you don't have multi-factor, would that be considered a safe option?
Well, normally biometrics take the place of entering your password, so that's still only considered one factor. I don't think any of the GDSs are considering using biometrics as a second factor. So normally what happens if you're using a mobile device, when I log into my phone, you know, again, if I'm using my face, like if I'm using an Apple device and I'm using my face as the original factor, that's taking the place of me entering in a passcode. Right, so that's the first factor, and then the second factor would be whatever else is needed. So, yeah, sometimes it's just one of a type of factor for logging into a device or into an application.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Moving to 5.
Okay, 5 is installation and maintenance of industry standard antivirus software, firewall software, and anti-malware software on all agents' computers, and the regular use thereof, and maintenance of logs for such use. This requirement is about having certain software and functions in place on your computer. So that is a firewall, antivirus, and anti-malware. Again, for a lot of operating systems now, these are installed by default. On Windows systems, a firewall comes with it. On Mac systems, a firewall comes there. The only difference is for Windows systems, the firewall and antivirus, anti-malware are all integrated together and are turned on by default. For Mac systems, the firewall is there, but is not turned on by default. You have to make sure that you turn it on. And so again, the requirement here is making sure that you have these different types of software on your machine and you're using them. And we already talked about logs. The reason why this is broken out separately is because sometimes you could use a separate program. You don't have to use the Windows software that comes with it. You don't have to use the Mac software. Sometimes people use separate programs that they like Norton or some other type of software, and they turn all these pieces on themselves.
So Rich, just for my own knowledge, in the Windows environment where it's by default turned on, could a user go and turn that off?
Yes, and if the user had, you have the password for your computer, right? You have the password for your operating system, so you could turn it off. And again, what we're trying to say in this requirement is it needs to be on at all times.
Yeah, perfect.
You also have the capability of changing some of the settings, and you should make sure that the settings are what you would like to see. But as long as it's on and it's protecting your computer, that's what we would like to see.
Okay. Requirement 6.
Number 6 is use and maintenance of effective and current anti-spam and anti-phishing email filtering systems and effective use of anti-phishing toolbars. The reason why this is separate is for anti-spam and anti-phishing, normally that's provided by your email provider. So depending on who you're using, that's normally where the settings for these types of things are. That's the one who's going to be scanning your mail. But again, people can buy separate programs to address this specifically. So, if something's provided by your email provider, normally that's built in. You don't have to do anything separate. And sometimes people like using separate programs so they have a little more control over looking and preventing anti-spam or anti-phishing emails. But either solution is acceptable. You just have to have them in place.
Okay. On to 7. There we go.
So appropriate maintenance of security, encryption, and password protection on agents' computer and any wireless internet systems used by agents' computers. So the 2 elements are here are, one is for your PC itself, to not leave it open. In other words, have it require a password to log into it. Any of the security pieces that we mentioned before, so all the other things, firewall, antivirus, anti-spam, any of that, keeping that up to date. That means that's the maintenance piece of this. Encryption is a good idea to set on your personal PCs, because that means if you have encryption on, somebody can't, if the computer was stolen, they wouldn't be able to look at your data unless they had your password and key. So encryption is always a good idea to have on all time. It's just something that works in the background. You don't see any difference, but it's an option to set on any computer. And then for the wireless side is, for whatever you're using to get to the internet, you should always make sure that that device is password protected, that you are able to log into it, and that it's working properly.
Okay. And Rich, I have a question here about are antivirus and other security systems available on mobile devices?
I'm sorry, on what devices?
On mobile devices?
On mobile devices, yes. There are mobile applications that allow for the antivirus programs and things like that on there. So normally the manufacturers who make something for the PC also make a mobile version, and sometimes when you purchase one, you automatically get the other. So you can have something on your mobile device, and most of the manufacturers for mobile devices have other things built in as well to help protect you from that. But as I said, the anti-spam, anti-phishing is normally from the email provider, who's ever you're using for email. Everything else is from either the manufacturer of your device or computer, right? The operating system, so Windows or Mac, or you're purchasing another third-party application like Norton or something similar, and so you have a separate.
And so, Richard, for the toolbars on your email account that's automatically there, are there any email accounts that are better protected than others, or provide a better solution than others, or are they all sort of providing a similar standard?
I think for the most part, everyone's fairly similar. I don't want to single out anyone. I think when we have our detailed discussion in February, we might have some more information there in terms of vendors. But for the most part, you're talking about major providers of internet service and email, and most of them have similar solutions when it comes to phishing and spam.
And I mean, is there a difference between a paid-for email service versus a free email service when it comes to security?
There can be. I think it has to do with the bells and whistles that are on there. For the most part, you're talking about some basic functions, and then there are advanced functions and control. And most of the free ones only have some basic functions, and then they want you to pay for the advanced functions. So there's always a cost in terms of some of this. The question is free good enough? In most cases, what's embedded, and when I say free, when you get a Microsoft operating system, Windows operating system, what comes with it is very good security software, right? It's making sure that it's turned on. So while it seems like it's free, you paid for it when you bought your computer or your operating system. So you know, that's really a paid software. For most of the things that are out on the internet, if you're buying a third party, you're paying separately anyway. So you know, normally, you know, there it's just a comparison of features and functions in terms of what you like. But for basic functions, almost everybody has the same basic set of functions, which is making sure that you're preventing email. It's just a question of how many updates, how well do they keep things current, and what additional features they might supply.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. On to number 8.
I will take for you guys. So number 8, it states the attendance of agent and all personnel issuing ARC traffic documents at an ARC approved fraud or security webinars and training in the previous 12 months. So what do we mean by this? So the good thing is all of you on the webinar, you have fulfilled this requirement. So that's the good news. So specifically, we have kind of a twofold factor kind of going on, kind of like multi-factor actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Rich. So the first stage is this training. This training is going to be posted on our website, and Judy's going to give additional information regarding that later in the session. We ask that all individuals within an agency who have access to issuing airline tickets take this webinar, and Judy will give you additional information, but that will fulfill the requirement initially. Then we are in the process of putting a full-fledged training program together, and we hope to be announcing those details in the June-July timeframe. So keep a lookout for that, because additional communication will be coming out around those changes. But for right now, the fulfillment of this requirement is this webinar, which either you are attending today, or we ask the agents to attend via the website with additional details coming. I'll turn it back to you, Rich.
Thank you. Rich, before you go on, I have a question that just came in. Travel agents stating they have thousands of travel agents and they have their own security awareness training for those agents. Mm-hmm. Would that training suffice or be accepted as a training over and above to what ARC is providing?
Totally understand. And the answer to that would be maybe in the June timeframe. I think we need to take that into consideration. It's something Rich and I are talking about, how we are going to approve additional training requirements, because obviously we'd have to look at those training and make sure it's something that's meeting the standards of what we need for the agencies. But I would say as of today, the answer would be no. We'd want everybody to watch this webinar. And until the June timeframe comes, then we're going to look at what other third-party trainings are available that we could say that meet the needs of what we need given the current environment, and also what other opportunities do we have from ARC to host additional trainings. So for right now, it's the webinar. For June, it would be a maybe based on our determination as we move forward. Is that fair, Rich?
That is fair, yes.
Perfect. Any other questions on that, Cornelius?
Yes, there is a question that also just came in on the same topic. How will we keep record of sales agents if they see videos online?
So Judy's going to explain to you, but high level, we are tracking who's taking the webinar. You're also going to be taking a little quiz at the surprise. It's like a surprise quiz when you're a kid. So you're going to be taking a little quiz at the end of the webinar, and then you're going to be provided a code, and that code is going to be used. So remember, this is in the reasonable care section. So if at any time there is a reasonable care decision that needs to be made, one of the criteria we're going to look at is if your ticketing agents had taken a session with ARC right now, and in the future, one of our approved sessions.
Perfect, thank you.
Of course.
Then moving on, Rich.
All right, we're down to the last 2 requirements. So the next requirement says installation of computer operating system updated with all latest patches and with automatic updates enabled. This requirement really is around making sure that you're keeping everything up to date. So when we say latest patches, that means that we're having the operating system maintained from a security standpoint, but the automatic updates makes it seamless, right? So if you have automatic updates enabled, when a new patch comes out, it will automatically be applied and updated on your operating system. So we want to make sure that that is what is set on each computer, so that everything stays up to date and it's not a manual process.
Thank you. And no questions on this at the moment, as we'll move on to the last requirement.
And the last one is just as easy. So it's internet browsers are installed with the latest patches and with automatic updates enabled. And this is, again, to make sure that everything is kept up to date and that it's seamless and done in the background. And so that we can always make sure that any of the browsers get the latest versions, the latest security patches, the latest updates, and it's done automatically for you so that it doesn't have to be done manually and everything's kept up to date instantaneously. So we just want to make sure that that's how everything is set for the operating system perspective as well as the browser, because the browser is the biggest tool that is used when accessing the GDSs and where a lot of exploits will happen if you're trying to access the internet and you get a phishing email.
Okay, we've got one question in, or rather just for clarification. This webinar will be considered as part of ARC's continuing education.
And the answer is yes. It fulfills the requirement for the security purposes for the 12-month period, and then further details about additional requirements, hopefully in the June, not requirements, opportunities, sorry, for training around the June-July timeframe.
Perfect. Another question. Questions are coming in, so perfect. Please let them continue coming in. And so let me get on the ones that just came in. Oh, they're flying in now. Do we have a page of detail, a page detailing how to ascertain if all these requirements have been met? Yeah. Yes. We have a checklist that will confirm or validate that these requirements, as stipulated in Section B, have been met by the agency when we are determining reasonable care.
I believe, Cornelius, I believe the question, if I'm understanding it correctly, is more they want a one-page kind of detailing what they need to do, kind of articulating what Rich was stating mostly. I believe that's the question. Am I correct?
Let me read it again.
Okay.
Do you, ARC, have a page detailing how to ascertain if all these requirements have been met? So, yeah.
Yeah, so have been met. That's the part that's throwing me off. So if your question is related to how do we know that it's been met, Cornelius's answer is absolutely accurate. During a reasonable care decision, we ask for details, we have documentation, we review them, and we make sure that reasonable care has been met. If you're asking for additional details related to everything that we spoke about, we're going to talk a little bit about an open house webinar we're having in February, where Rich will have additional details and documentation be provided. So depending on your question, those are the two answers. I just want to make sure we don't miss the question. Hopefully we answered that one for you.
Okay. We've got another one here. What happens if someone does not take the training? And, you know, I was going to paraphrase further on, but I'll leave the question as is, and then we can answer it otherwise.
Sure. Right now, remember the training is right now today, the requirement that's going to affect January 30th is the training is needed when a reasonable care decision is being made. So what would happen is if you did have a breach and your agents had not taken the webinar, then that would be one factor in the determination of reasonable care decision. In the future, we are looking at making the fraud training mandatory and not just in conjunction with reasonable care. But that is not in effect yet. That is still under discussion. So today's requirement, starting January 30th, is that all agents must be trained, and we'll be validating that only if a reasonable care decision is being made. Also, it's also part of the new application process. So when you're applying, if Obviously, you guys are mostly all accredited, but if a new agent is applying, we are validating that the ticketing agents have taken this webinar prior to giving them ARC approval.
Yeah. Okay, we got another question. While you ARC have provided a pretty clear guidance on the service providers, can you discuss if solutions like online booking tools are subject to these terms also? I would say online booking tools will have their own rules for access. In many instances, these online booking tools might require, if you are setting up an account, depending on how you access that environment, might already have multifactor to enable you to access them. But in most instances, these online booking tools should and would have their own rules and regulations as far as accessing those environments go. The concern that we addressing is mainly access, is the access from there on into the GDS and how that access is obtained and protected and going forward. So hopefully that answers that question.
I agree with you, Cornelius. I'll just add, just so everybody understands, we built these requirements based on what we were seeing in the industry, as Cornelius stated in his first slide. So the breaches we are currently seeing are with system providers, hence the requirement is around system provider access. That does not mean that the requirements will continue to grow, change, and evolve as industry's problems start to change and evolve. So expect to see changes as, you know, fraud occurs, etc. But for what we're seeing today, we feel that the system provider falsified emails, phishing emails that are going out is where we need to stop, so we could stop the agents that are being scammed and unfortunately losing money in the long run.
Another question, is it just the ticketing agents who would be required to attend this webinar, seminar, or would it apply to all agents with the ability, and I'm adding on to this question, with the ability to look and book, I assume would be the...
So the requirement today for us from an ARC perspective is anybody who has access to issuing tickets, or anybody who's issuing tickets. If you want to go above and beyond that, that's wonderful, because I think much like a business continuity plan, you never really want to use it, but it's great to have it, right? So to me, a good, strong security plan, hopefully you guys never have to use it, but it's good to have it. So if you want more people in your agencies to watch the videos and attend the webinars, great. But our requirement right now is that anybody who's issuing tickets, because as you can see with the requirements, it's anybody who's actually issuing a ticket, what security has to be in place. So that's the requirement as of today.
Yeah, and it sort of goes back to the first slide or first requirement around PCCs, and where we stated do not share those, right? So if you're a responsible PCC for issuing the ticket, don't share it with someone who doesn't have that rule or requirement in their role profile to have it. So to keep that separate as well. So that will strengthen and that environment for you as well. There are a couple of questions here that we can't, I mean, we can, but it's a little bit complicated in some aspects here, and I think these questions will be better suited for our more in-depth, more technical discussion and webinar in February 22nd. So for those that we've not answered today, we will try to get back to you via email as well. Alternatively, please bring those questions to the February 22nd one, but we will get back to you after this webinar via email on those questions that we can answer or have the knowledge on to answer. Some of these get a little bit, you know, especially like the online booking tools, the mid-office functionalities and so forth, requires us to do a little bit more review and research on, but we will be able to get back to you on an answer to those questions. Then when will the video be available to have it to see it online. Judy, it'll be pretty soon after this session, correct?
Yeah, great. I'll and sorry, because Jeannine had alluded to it as well. So thank you, Cornelius, for bringing that up again. How this is going to work, and Jeannine, jump in if I'm not getting this right. For anyone that's attended the webinar today, we have your name, your email that you registered. So that's awesome. How we'd like you to reinforce the knowledge that you gained here today is if you take our quiz, and how you'll get access to that is in our thank you follow-up email that'll probably be coming out Monday, Tuesday-ish next week. Just give our marketing team a little time. You'll get an email that will have the recorded webinar, and you'll also have a link to this quiz that we're referring to. And what that is, it will test your knowledge of what you've heard here today. You'll go through it. It'll ask for your name and your email and everything. Again, sorry about that, but it's the tool that we're using, and then you'll be asked a few questions. Then you'll be told if you got those right or not, and if not, you can go back and retake it. It will give you the correct answers, so that again, it just reinforces everything that we want you to take away with you. That code, the webinar code, it will ask for a code, which is 625. What we do ask is that for other folks that didn't attend this webinar, and we will know because, again, like I said, you'll be registered, we will be sending out in the TAC message as well, we'll be sending out the recorded webinar, and we'll also be sending out a link to the quiz. In order for you to take the quiz, you'll have to watch the webinar to get the code, so we ask that you don't share the code. And that will be proof that then somebody watched the webinar that didn't attend it here today. So the quiz is just reinforcing you went through the recorded webinar, you understood everything that was being said, and you answered the questions correctly. And that will be your proof. You can save a copy of that, your quiz, if you like, for reinforcement, but we will also be recording that as well on your behalf. So that's how that will work. And if you have any questions or additional questions regarding that, it probably sounds a little complicated. It's really not. You can contact me, jhoward@arccorp.com, jhoward@arccorp.com. Cornelius, I didn't mean to take so much time, but
No problem.
I didn't know if you were done.
So I think the question was, when will, I understand the TAC, but when will the, for somebody who doesn't see the TAC, because not everybody receives it, when will this webinar be posted on the website?
Yep, it will be posted on the webinar, again, Monday or Tuesday of next week, and the email, the follow-up email with the link to the recording will be Monday or Tuesday of next week. Yep, as soon as our marketing department can get it out. And to Jeannine's point, where it is located on the website, if you, for some reason, lost the email, it will be, you go to on-demand webinars and it will be listed there. There will also be a little note where it will say, take the quiz. Like I said, and you don't get any of that, jhoward@arccorp.com, and I'll be happy to provide you with whatever you need. So, Cornelius, if there's anything before
Judy, I just want to validate that on the quiz we'll be capturing the person who's taking the quiz's name and additional information in order to as having taken the quiz as well, just to answer one of our earlier questions.
Yeah, and I know there are some folks here that maybe don't have an ARC number but want to take the quiz anyway. You can do that. It is we do have your ARC number as a requirement, but if you want to take the quiz just to test your own knowledge, you can just type in, I think it's an 8-digit number, and it'll allow you to proceed. But we would like everyone else to put in their correct number.
So we have another question, and that is the agent able to forward the email that they will receive after this webinar? Are they allowed to forward it, or could they forward it to their agents to go and see the video and do the quiz?
Yep, that's a really good question. Thanks for that question, and thanks for asking it, Cornelius. Yes, you can forward that. You can forward it to, as Jeannine noted, it would be to anyone that is going to be ticketing in your office, or as she noted, if you want to go above and beyond, then you can forward that to anyone in your office. It's really, this whole session's been really informative. And it can benefit anyone in your office that you'd like to share it with. And that email can be forwarded. Those aren't individual unique links.
Right. So we're coming up to time almost, about 9 minutes left. So any additional questions that you might have, please bring those forward. But again, just as we are on this thank you slide, I just want to reiterate that if you are suspecting any fraud or any concerns in relation to activity that you find suspicious, please forward it to us at stopfraud@arccorp.com. We do investigate those. We do try and track the origins of it. So it is very helpful when we do get any concerns from the agency community in relation to any suspicious activity that you might detect. So please feel free to email us at stopfraud. As Judy mentioned, the webinar code is 625, and we will have that follow-up webinar for a more in-depth Q&A February 22nd. All right, we've got a few more email questions coming in. The question is, we have 2 ARC numbers. Will ARC be able to track on both ARC numbers? I think the short answer is yes. If we forwarded the link, how will ARC know that those agents did watch the recording? Well, number one, they would have to use the code that is in the recording. We will also track them as we will be capturing their names and ARC number at the top of the quiz prior to them completing it. And the ARC number is mandatory to be entered. Would we have access to know who in our office has taken the training for our records? Jeannine, sorry, Judy, I wouldn't want to speak out of turn, but I would say if a request is sent to Judy, she would be able to confirm and pull a report and to show who attended or who took the training and the quiz. Is that a correct statement, Judy?
Yes, that's correct, Cornelius. And I'd be happy to answer anyone's questions on regards to that question and who took it.
Perfect. Okay. I think we've sort of, any more questions? We have a few more minutes left, so please let them in. As I said, we've overlooked a couple of your questions here, but that's either because of the technical side of things, and or the question might not necessarily be very clear to us, so we would ask for further clarification on that afterwards to be able to answer that.
Cornelius, can we just give a little sneak peek, maybe? And I'm happy to do it. We keep mentioning this follow-up webinar. So the idea of the follow-up webinar is to allow more of a, correct me here, more of a question answer. So we're not expecting to go into a heavy PowerPoint during that webinar. It's more of a, do you have specific requirements for your agent you want to discuss? Or how do I do this on a Mac? Or what does this mean for, my computer XYZ? So we want to make sure we have an open dialogue for those agents that want to attend. That is not part of the requirement. That is not part of any quiz. But it is good. It's a good opportunity for you to work with Rich and his team on actually implementing the requirements. So if there's specific detailed information you need, of course you can reach out to us one-on-one if you have specifics that you want to share personally without a larger group. But most, like any rollout in your businesses, when you do a rollout of technology, it's always good to have type of that open house that people could ask questions. So that's the thought behind there. And the other thing I just want to add, we keep mentioning quiz. I don't want to scare people. This is a very short quiz. Okay, so when we say quiz, sometimes I could say for myself, with all due respect to Rich, when he sends out our security requirements and our training, I always look like, oh, how big is it? It's really the same. It's very short. It just tests your knowledge. I think it's like 5 or 6 questions, Judy, right? We're not talking about multi-page quiz, so I don't want to scare anybody there. We're just trusting that you listened and you were actually paying attention during the webinar and you weren't multitasking. So we want to make sure that you at least understand the requirements, and that's our goal. Is really not to trick you. Our goal is to make sure you understand the requirements, because we just don't want the responsibility to fall back on the agents anymore.
Yeah, and thanks for clarifying that, Jeannine. I didn't.
I could just speak for myself when I get a little scared. I have flashbacks maybe to school or something. might be my own problem, but hopefully that's set everybody at ease.
No, thanks for level setting that. Cornelius, if there's no more questions, then I'll kind of close out here.
Yep, I don't. It's yep. I think some of the questions just came in. We will have to take offline.
Okay, great. Offline.
Yeah, offline. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. First, I really want to thank all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us today. This is an important topic, as you can all tell by what we've just listened to over the past 55 minutes. It's a lot to digest, and as we talked about, this will be, it is being recorded, it will be sent out, it will be in an email, will also be posted on our website. You can watch it as many times as you need or refer back to it. If you have additional questions, like I said, you can always reach out to me, and I can reach out to Cornelius, Rich, or Jeannine to get more clarification on any of your questions, and we're happy to have you ask them. Just other few housekeeping things before we again close off here today, but there will be a survey immediately after the close of this webinar. That's different than the quiz, and just take the time to take it. It helps give us some valuable insights, how we can do a better job, how we can provide different information, or do better. So just again, if you can take the time to fill that out, we really, really do appreciate it. And like we said, the follow-up email will be coming out early next week, so you didn't miss it if you didn't get it today. And that'll be going to everyone that attended today, registered today, and then otherwise we'll put it in the TAC for everybody else that didn't sign up or attend this session today to get this recording. I'm just trying to take a look. I think that's it. But another big thank you to Jeannine, to Cornelius, to Rich. Again, thank you for being here today. Thank you for conveying all this information. If there's any follow-up questions, or as Cornelius always states, if you suspect any sort of suspicious activity or fraud, please report it to stopfraud@arccorp.com. Really important. The webinar code 625, and that follow-up webinar, as Jeannine explained to us, is on February 22nd. There'll be information coming out about that in February, so look for your invitations. But thank you to our ARC panel. Thank you to everyone that attended here today. Really appreciate your time, and definitely hope you learned something today.